on enregistre. Comment on fait pour avoir un given value? Oui, c'est ça. Attends. Il est parti. Elle est partie. Elle est partie là. Voilà. À l'image de pareil, on a encore une petite minute et on commence après. Est-ce que j'aimerais, tu sais comment on fait pour mettre en plein écran ça?
C'est carré.
Ok, là on enregistre. Hello. Tu viens pas de là?
Je peux pas.
Okay, so it's time to start for the second lecture by Gilles Courtois, and I recall that it is a course on delta hyperbolicity and finiteness theorem.
Thank you, Gérard. So, hello, everybody. So, yesterday I stopped in the middle of the proof of the main theorem of this course, actually. So, I need to maybe to start to make a small reminder of yesterday and to recall you where we have stopped yesterday. So we were in the process of proving this theorem, which is that taking XD, a delta hyperbolic space, metric space, some proper action of a group gamma, isometry of XD, with some assumptions. First assumption is that the diameter of the quotient is bounded by some T. The entropy of X is less than H. And the conclusion was that for any R larger than 12 D plus 2 delta, and I recall you that there was a kind of mystery about why this is the right lower bound for R, then mu X gamma of the whole of radius R, kind of doubling property, divided by the measure of the whole of radius 5 R over 6 is bounded above. So mu X gamma, it produces that it is a counting measure of the orbit of X by gamma, and it was less than some number which was 1 plus 2 E R. Okay. Yesterday it was, I think, theorem 2. And okay, so we started proving this, and we reduced the proof of this theorem to a claim. So the claim was the following. The claim was that for any R, always in the same bound, then one had this the following estimate. So the left-hand side of our in our theorem here. So maybe I will write mu this counting measure from now. So mu of B x r divided by mu of bx 5r over 6 is less than mu of some kind of ratio of measure of annuli. The first annuli was bx r plus r prime minus bx r minus r prime over 2. This is an annuli centered at x divided by mu of another annuli, which is bxr minus bxr minus r prime over 2. Okay, so yesterday I explained why claim imply this theorem. Okay, and so we were in the process of proving the claim, and in order to prove the claim, we have started stating a lemma, which was called lemma 1, and which is the place where delta hyperbolicity enters, and it was a lemma saying that the measure of intersection of balls is controlled in some sense. And it says this, so for any x, y, so in our x, and for any pair of radius, then there exists some point such that the intersection of the ball centered at x and radius r with the ball centered at y of radius r prime is contained in the ball centered at this point with a certain radius. And the strength of this lemma is that this is controlled as it is a minimum of r prime and 1/2 of r plus r prime minus d plus 2 delta, where d is the distance between x and y. Okay, and I probably have assumed that d was slightly less than r plus r prime in order to have a non-trivial intersection. Okay, so this was the statement of yesterday. And yesterday I did the proof of lemma 1 in the case of a tree, just to simplify the argument. And Andrea was not happy with the general case, so I just mentioned what you have to do to complete the proof. And so the proof. So for delta arbitrary, you have just to consider the two cases of yesterday, saying that the first case corresponds to the case where d is less than r minus r prime plus 4 delta. Yesterday, this term was 0. And the second case, so this was the easy case, and the second case was when r is larger than r minus r prime plus 4 delta. And here you use a quadrangle inequality, and here you use something trivial, which is that you can take y prime equal y and small l equal r prime. Okay? So I let you do this exercise to take the proof of yesterday and to complete it with this alternative. Okay. Okay. So this is exactly here that we were yesterday, and so now we want to prove I don't remember actually if I stated the second lemma or if I really have stopped here. So in order to complete the proof of the claim, I will need two other lemma. So a lemma which I will call easy lemma, which says the following. So if omega is a Borel subset in X, then the integral over omega of, so mu is always this okay, some measure. So things that we stick with this one, but it's not important for that particular statement. So mu is a measure, and you integrate over omega the measure of a ball centered at y with respect to this measure. And the easy lemma says that this is equal to the integral over x of mu of the intersection between the ball of radius r and omega. So probably you have seen such things. It's an easy exercise, and I let you prove this. It's a consequence of this theorem. So I let you do this exercise. Okay, so and there is a second lemma, which will be, so to speak, important one. And this is lemma 2, and I have to state it correctly. Are there questions so far? So what I have said here up to here is just a reminder of what we said yesterday. So if there are any questions, please don't hesitate. And the lemma 2 is the following. So for any r and r prime, two positive radius, and I will assume that, let's say, some assumption on the radius. So if you think of this assumption, it's certainly implied by it's certainly contained by this assumption. So it's not really a restriction so far. So when we have this relation, is if mu is any gamma invariant measure, you can stick to the counting measure. Then you have some relation between the measure between the integral over the ball centered at x of radius r over this annulus, ball r of radius r minus ball of radius r minus r prime over 2 of mu of the ball of radius r and radius r prime mu of y. Okay. Then this is less than mu of the ball large annulus. So r plus r prime minus, I make a picture right now. Time mu of b x 3/4 of r prime plus d plus 2 delta. Sounds strange, but maybe okay. So before making the picture, I just tell you quickly, because it's very easy, why this lemma implies the claim. Okay, so why is it so? The idea is the following. So you choose mu, the counting measure, okay, and therefore this term here, you are going to measure with the counting measure the measure of these balls, but because of definition of the counting measure, this point y belongs to the orbit, belongs to the gamma orbit of x, okay, and by invariance of the counting measure by isometry, this is always equal to the measure of the ball centered at x of radius r prime. Okay? Because I integrate with respect to the counting measure, so all these points are in the support of this measure, so they are pointing in the orbit, and ball centered, ball of same radius centered at every point of the orbit are the same. So it's just mu of bx r prime. And so the first term here, which I will call A, the first term here is just the product of the measure of the ball of centered at x and of radius r prime time mu of b right? Time mu of this annulus, mu of the ball of radius, r minus b x r minus r prime over 2. Okay? And you recognize two of the terms which appear in the claim. Okay, there is this term here and this term here. Okay. Okay, so right, so there is a r prime here. Sorry, so be careful. So here I have written r, but it's r prime. Okay, the claim of yesterday was this inequality with an r prime here, not an r. Okay, it's very important. Okay, sorry, it's r prime here. And so, as I said, these two terms correspond to these two terms here and here. Okay, so you are really in the good direction. All right, and now you look at this. You look at this this term here. So this is less than mu of bx r plus r prime minus b, this term, r minus r prime over 2 time, and this term here. And this is where you are going to see the assumption appearing. So here, this term is so one has assumed that r prime is larger than 12 d plus 2 delta. Okay, and therefore d plus 2 delta is smaller than r prime over 12. This is our assumption. And therefore, you come up here with mu, it's less, this term is less than mu of b x 3/4 of r prime divided by 4 plus d plus 2 delta, which is less than r prime over 12. And if you look at this this quantity, it is just 5 r prime over 6. Okay, and it's exactly what you wanted. Okay, so this is so time mu of b x 5 r prime over 6, and this inequality here is exactly the claim. Okay, so this is exactly the claim. All right, so now we come up with how to prove lemma 2, and we will be done. Okay, so let me other question. So proof of lemma 2, and for proving lemma 2, I start with the left-hand side quantity, so what I have called a. Okay, and a is just the integral over this annulus bxr minus bxr minus r prime over 2 of mu b y r prime the mu of y. Okay. Okay, sorry. I write it. It's too small. So a equals the integral over b x r minus b x r minus r prime over 2 of mu x prime mu of y. And this can be written as the integral over some larger annulus b x r plus r prime minus b x r minus r prime over 2 of intersection with b x r. Okay. So what I am saying here is that this you have several annuli. So here it's the first ball of radius r. Maybe I should make a picture, larger picture. Can I erase here? the picture is the following. So you have the first ball here of radius r minus r prime over 2, a second ball of radius r, and the third one of radius r plus r prime. And what I am saying here is that this annulus here, it is the same as this large annulus here, intersected with this ball. Completely obvious. And so now I rewrite this integral as this way. So same function inside the integral. Okay. And now I can apply our easy lemma with x being this set and omega being this set. Okay. And you come up with A equal the integral over the large annulus of mu of dx r prime intersection with dx. It's a y here. It's a y here. I'm sorry. So it's a y. So I was integrating. You erase this. So by definition, the quantity I have, which is in the lemma 2, is the integral of the measure of balls of centered y of this r prime. So there is a y here, and therefore you have this intersection. Just applying the easy lemma. Okay. All right. So now the lemma 1. So that's where the geometry enters this picture. So lemma 1. So I continue here. Lemma 1 says that this intersection here, is contained. Okay, I write it here. So lemma 1 says that this intersection x y r prime with a ball dxr is contained in a certain ball centered at a certain point, y prime. So there is a point somewhere. So x, y is here. The ball centered at y and radius r prime is over there. I compute this, the measure of these sets. And okay, and r was the mean. I recall you that it was the mean of r prime and 1/2 of r prime plus r minus d. D again is the distance between x and y plus 2 delta. Okay. Okay, but in this case, if I look at this case, we know that we have assumed that in lemma 2, which I cleverly erased, we made the assumption that r prime is less than r and larger than 8 delta. Okay. And now look at, so I claim that this r will be this term. Okay, at the moment. And why so? Because d, so in our setting, d, which is the distance between x and y, is larger than it is in this annulus, so it's larger than r minus r prime over 2. So d is larger than r minus r prime over 2. Okay, and so this quantity is certainly less than 1/2 of r prime plus r minus r plus r prime over 2, and then plus 2 delta. Okay, and this term here, you see, it's exactly what? It's exactly 3 r prime over 4 plus 2 delta. But this assumption here means that 2 delta is smaller than quarter of R prime. Okay? So it's less than R prime, and then the minimum of this set of numbers is exactly this one. Okay, and so now I am happy, almost happy, and almost finished. Why? Because in this integral now, so recall that I want to get an upper bound on this, and now I have showed that this intersection of balls is contained in such a ball, and therefore we can deduce of all this discussion that A is smaller than the integral over B x r plus r prime minus B x r minus r prime over 2, okay, of mu of, and replace mu of B x, sorry, I forgot to say something. Okay. So what I have shown so far is that this intersection of balls, which appears in this integral, is contained in this ball here. Okay, but this ball is not far from being a ball centered at the point of the orbit, because the quotient has diameter less than t. So I say that there exists some gamma in gamma such that the ball centered at y prime and of radius r is contained in the ball centered at some point of the orbit r plus d here. Okay, because every point, I mean, the orbit of x are d close, d being the diameter to everybody. Okay, and now I can replace. So which means that mu of b y prime r is less than mu of b x r plus d. Okay. And now in this integral here, I can replace this measure by the measure of this guy, and we come up with the lemma 2. So maybe I erase this picture to conclude. Therefore, A is smaller than the integral over this large annulus of mu of x r plus b d mu y, and so it's exactly mu of x r plus d times mu of x r, sorry, mu of x, there are some letters missing, mu of, maybe I should write every letter, so mu of b x r plus r prime minus b x r minus r prime over 2 times mu of b x r plus d, and that's it. Okay, where now r is, I can replace r. Yeah, here is mu of b x, and r plus d is, r is somewhere here, is here 3 r prime over 4 plus 2 delta plus d. Okay, and this is the second term. So, and this is exactly the content of the lemma. Okay, so the term a is bounded above by the product of two measure of this large annulus times the measure of this ball. Okay, and we are done with this long proof. So I'm sorry, it's a bit. I mean, there are many things, many radius, and it's a bit annoying. But since it is the main tool of this course, I couldn't not do it. I couldn't not do it. Okay, so if are there questions so far? So if you are okay, if you are not happy with this proof, just read it in the notes. They are complete here. So now So now I will start to give you the first application of this Bishop-Gromov inequality. So there are some remarks I could do before coming to this application, and I would like to let you an exercise. So in the main statement here, we say that this kind of Bishop-Gromov quotient is bounded above by entropy. Okay, so but this quotient is written for the counting measure, and so you could ask, oh, what if this measure, this counting measure, would be replaced by any invariant measure? For example, in the Riemannian setting, you rather work with a Riemannian measure, and I let you do this exercise to find a counterexample if mu is not the counting measure. So it's an interesting exercise which allows to understand deeply what is going on here in this Bishop-Gromov inequality. So exercise. It's false for, a priori, can be false for a measure, a gamma invariant measure, which wouldn't be the counting measure. Think of this. And okay, so all right, so the first main application that I would like to discuss now is an estimate of Betti number, the first Betti number of metric space satisfying topological metric spaces satisfying our current assumption, delta hyperbolic, bound on entropy, bound on the podiameter of the action of a group. And let me just introduce all this. So from now on, X. So yeah, so maybe I should X. Maybe I should write Y. Will be a compact metric space such that, so with some good property, I don't want an horrible metric space. I want to be able to say that this space Y has a universal cover and a fundamental group, so such that Y is equal to X mod gamma, where gamma is the fundamental group of Y. Which means that Y should be locally simply connected, the usual assumption to have such a situation. Okay. Right. So and so this group a priori, so gamma, and I will assume that Y is compact. Okay. So since Y is compact, its fundamental group is finitely generated. Of course, it may not be abelian, and so what one do generally is to so gamma may be not abelian, and so we defined H1 of Y with integer coefficient by the quotient of gamma by its commutator subgroup. So it's the abelinization of the group, gamma ab. Okay. And therefore, so this is a simple, the interest of this, one interest of this homology, first homology group is that it is an abelian group. And since gamma is finitely generated, it's a finitely generated abelian group, and therefore you can apply to it theorem of algebra, which says that H1, so H1 of Y Z is isomorphic to a certain free part ZR of a certain product of torsion subgroup, which I write this way. Okay? So it's a product of Z to the R time finite product of finite abelian subgroup. All right. So and so what we call the first Betti number definition, what we call the first Betti number of Y is just this number R. So it is the first Betti number of Y. Okay. So it's a kind of dimension of the free part of the abelianization of the group gamma, and so it gives some information of the complexity of the space. And there has been an important works in Riemannian geometry trying to bound the topology as the first Betti number of a manifold, or even other Betti number, by the local geometric assumption of the manifold. And let me just recall you some theorem which is due to Sylvain Gallo and Michel Gromov, with two different proofs, and which says the following. So it says that there exists some constant depending on the dimension and then lambda and diameter, such that for any closed Riemannian manifold MG, such that the diameter of M is less than D, such that the Ricci curvature of M is larger than minus n minus 1 lambda. Okay. Then B1 of M is less than this constant. Okay? So what I'm saying is that diameter is a core bond of diameter and lower bond of Ricci curvature, and knowing the dimension gives you a bound on the property. Okay? So the two proofs given by Gallo and Gromov are of different nature, and so the proof by Sylvain uses analysis on manifold, in particular the Bochner or Weizenberg formulas, and the proof of Gromov. And this proof by Sylvain is pretty sharp, in fact, so it can give rise to a equality case. And there is another proof due to Gromov, which is not sharp, but which is in some sense softer and more easy to generalize in wider context. Okay, so this proof I will explain to you now, and as the first application of our Bishop-Gromov theorem, I will show the. Okay, so maybe before stating our result, let me just make some comment about this statement. So first comment is that these two assumptions are really necessary. I mean, having a lower bound on curvature and an upper bound on diameter is necessary to bound the first Betti number. Think of these two examples. So look at parabolic surface. So of sectional curvature, so it's a surface, hyperbolic surface of sectional curvature constant equal to -1, and of genus G large genus. So when the genus tends to infinity, you can show that the diameter has to tend to infinity. So S is SG, the surface of genus G. So the diameter has to tend to infinity, and the Betti number of SG is G minus. Okay? So it tends to infinity. So you cannot hope to get bound on Betti number without bound on diameter. Okay? And of course, the same. So if you just press this accordion, I don't know if it's the English word. So second example, you just renormalize in such a way that the diameter becomes 1. So you multiply by some small numbers in such a way that the diameter becomes 1. But in this case, the sectional curvature here tends to minus infinity. Okay. So it's impossible to release these two assumptions. So, okay. Question so far? Okay, so let me just state our theorem for the rest of this time. So as usual, I start with XD delta hyperbolic, some action gamma on XD, and our standard assumption, so the diameter of X mod gamma is less than D, like in this theorem, and the entropy of XD less than H, and I already made this comment that this is weaker than this kind of assumption, okay? Because lower bound on entropy implies upper bound on the entropy. Then B1 of, so let me call Y B1 of Y is less than a constant depending on delta H and D. So I should have said that there exists some constant such that for any such situation, one has this upper bound on the first Betti number. Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to explain you is that how, in fact, is the argument of Gromov and how it can be completed by this theorem. But in fact, it is exactly the argument of Gromov that I'm going to explain now. Okay, so all right, so the basic observation is to come back to the definition of the Betti number. So you have a group gamma which is finitely generated. So let's consider S some finite generating set of gamma. And so in order to define the first Betti number, we have considered the abelianization of the group. Gamma mod commutator subgroup. And we have said that this is isomorphic to ZR cross a product of finite cyclic and now I can project on the first factor, okay, and I can embed this first factor in R to the R, okay, and I look at this map here, phi, which is a morphism of group. Okay, so phi of gamma gamma prime is equal to phi of gamma plus phi of gamma prime. Okay? Here I know the law of group multiplicatively, and here it's just okay? So one has this, and of course, the set S, the image of the set S by this map phi. So this set. So if I stop phi right before, it generates, of course, ZR. And so phi of S generates the space R as a vector space. So this set generates R to the R as a vector space. Okay? Because it generates a lattice inside. Okay. All right, and so for this reason, R is bounded above by the cardinal of this generating set. Okay. So it's enough it would be enough to bound the cardinal of S in order to get what we want, but unfortunately, given a group and a finitely generating set, there is no reason so far to bound the cardinal of S by above. We will see in the next courses that we can do it, but it's much more involved than what I'm going to say now. All right, so what is that? So here, somehow we are, okay, so this, here, somehow we are stuck, okay? So the idea is to find a subset, a finite subset in gamma. The idea is to find a finite subset in gamma with a property that the cardinal of S prime is bounded by some nice constant. And such that, so two properties, and such that the group gamma prime generated by this subset, final subset. So of course it's finite because I want to bound the cardinality. And now I consider the subgroup generated by this subset. It should be of finite index. So, okay. So it claims that if you can find if you can find such a finite set S prime, then you are done. Okay. So let me claim that 1 plus 2 implies a theorem. And the idea is that this assumption, so let me comment a little bit. So you see, these two assumptions goes in opposite directions. So I want to find a finite subset S prime of gamma, with not that many elements, okay? Because that is exactly what I want. Okay, but in the other hand, I want that this set should be big enough in order to keep the control on R. Okay? So these two things goes in the opposite direction, and so why? So why these two things imply the theorem? The point is the following. So the proof is the following. So, right. So the idea is the following. So look at our map phi. Right. So look at our map phi from let's say gamma prime. We have a map phi from gamma to gamma not the commutator, and to the R and to R to the R. Okay, and now we look at the image. So S prime is a subset of gamma, and I will look at the image of S prime by phi, which is a subset of phi prime. Okay, and I claim that so this set generates. I would like that this set continue to generate as a vector space. So if this phi of S prime generates R to the R, then I am done because this implies that R is less than the cardinal of S prime, which is bounded. Okay? It's exactly what I want. Okay? So why we have this? So I have to explain you why phi of S prime generate R to the R. Let me do it here. So we know that the gamma prime has finite index. So the cardinal is finite. And so look at gamma, some element in gamma, and look at the classes of modulo gamma prime of the power of gamma. Gamma k gamma prime. So this is element of the quotient. So this quotient is a priori not a subgroup, but it is a set. And this is a subset. And K is in Z. It is a subset of this set, and it is a finite subset because of finite index assumption. And therefore, there exists certainly two different power of gamma, such that gamma K gamma prime equal gamma L gamma prime as a class, which means that gamma K minus L is equal to some gamma prime in gamma prime. Okay? But this shows that if you look at phi of gamma K minus L, it is K minus L phi of gamma, okay? And it is phi of gamma prime, which implies that phi of gamma is phi of gamma prime divided by K minus L, and it is in the subspace generated by phi of S prime. So I put R. So here is what I mean by this symbol is the subspace of R to the R generated by this set. And what I have shown here is that any element here, so this I know that all elements I know that this set, the set of phi of gamma generates this. So again, I write it here. Oops. Okay. So let me just sum up what I just said. So we know that R is generated by the set of phi of gamma. Sorry.
Non, c'est bloqué parce qu'il y a une coupure.
Sorry. It's all right.
Ouais.
So let me just sum up why what I've said here prove this assertion here. And what we have shown in the last blackboard over there is that, so we know that R, by definition, R to the R is generated by this element, okay? In fact, it's even generated by phi of S, okay? And we have just shown that phi of gamma is phi of some gamma prime divided by k minus L, where gamma prime is in gamma prime, and therefore, the set phi of gamma prime also generates R to the R. Okay. And so this proves this little claim, which is that if one can find such an S, then we're done. Okay, so we come up with how to find such an S, and it is so I have made no break.
You can make a break. You can have 5-minute breaks if you want.
Okay, so
Or the break at the end. As you wish.
As you wish. As you wish.
Maybe a short break, 5 minutes.
Okay, short break, 5 minutes.
Because you can erase the blackboard. You are allowed to erase the blackboard.
Okay, I erase this blackboard. Okay.
No, do it. Okay, so we have a 5-minute break.
5 minute breaks, and so it makes the tension up because you want to.
Exactly, the suspense.
The suspense is total.
Donc tu peux bouger entre deux tableaux plus lentement.
Ah.
Sinon c'est.
Ah, c'est horrible.
Non, c'est pas horrible, moi je m'en fous. Là, ils nous entendent.
Comment?
Ils nous entendent.
Ils nous entendent.
Voilà. Non, on peut l'enregistrement, ça va nous font le trier. If you have a question, ask it during the. No. Don't answer questions now. During the lecture. So that
You forbid me to answer questions?
yes, and even to listen to his questions.
And even to listen?
Je peux poser la question. Si tu me diras après ce que je leur propose.
Ah non, ça sert à rien, c'est ridicule.
Non, c'est se préparer.
C'est juste, je ne connais pas l'argument pour dire que c'est finiment engendré. Si c'est triangulable, je vois, c'est évident.
Ouais.
Et quand ce n'est pas triangulable.
Je pense, moi, des complexes. Donc,
Ah oui,
c'est pas ce que je compte pas. J'ai en tête, c'est ça. De toute façon, il faut qu'il y ait un revêtement universel. Donc,
alors, voilà, je me demandais si tu utilisais le revêtement universel. Enfin, le fait qu'il y ait
ouais,
un revêtement universel.
j'avoue que je ne pose pas trop la question. Pour moi, ces objets X, Y, etc. sont des choses
Dans ce cas-là, je comprends.
il n'y a pas de problème. Bon, je ne sais pas avec quel degré de généralité on peut dire ça. Mais
Non, parce que
faut
je me demandais
vraiment
si
connaître.
l'argument pouvait aider à avoir la suite.
Non, c'est le fait que le groupe soit fini, j'ai déjà tout dit là-dessus. C'est le fait que c'est l'utilisation du passé, la décomposition du H1, ZR. Je ne vais pas le réutiliser. Donc on a des objets.
Tu vois, ça va être pas le coup.
Mais je n'ai pas compris ta question. Mais...
Comment est-ce qu'on démontre que le quotient est... Non, mais il y a une preuve très simple. Je te donne la preuve. La preuve que j'ai en tête, pas très précisément, elle dit la chose suivante. Tu as un diamètre qui est borné, tu fixes un point de revêtement universel, et tu regardes une boule de rayon 2D, quelque chose comme ça. Et ensuite, tu regardes tous les éléments du groupe qui qui envoie cette boule de rayon 2D sur une boule qui intersecte la boule de toutes les parties. Okay. Ça donne un ensemble fini à cause de l'action propre, ça donne un ensemble fini de revêtement universel. Donc, il faut qu'il y ait un revêtement universel. Ça donne un nombre fini de gens. Et après, tu démontres que ce nombre fini de gens, enfin, ce nombre fini de gens engendre le groupe. Et c'est
on n'a pas toujours besoin de triangle.
Oui, mais c'était ça ma question.
Mais voilà. Donc ça, c'est un argument.
Il faut juste savoir que l'action est propre.
Mais par ailleurs, on n'a pas tellement de on n'a pas d'exemples aussi exotiques. Enfin, des exemples auxquels on pense. Enfin, je ne sais pas, c'est le genre d'exemple, même pas si je pense. L'exemple, enfin, voilà, j'ai du mal à dépasser les doubles complexes, les immeubles.
Ce serait mieux qu'on n'ait pas une conversation en français. Alors que
it depends if you want your universal covering to be simply connected or not.
No, universal covering
is. If you want it to be simply connected, the assumption is that the basis is semi-locally simply connected, which is weaker than locally. You have difficulties, but it says that every loop, which for every node, there is a neighborhood, so that the P1 of the neighborhood, by the inclusion in the P1 of the whole space, is a trigger. So there is a neighborhood. You can say that also.
Okay, shall we start?
Every loop in this neighborhood is can be contracted. Okay. In X and not in the X, not in the X.
On y va. Okay, we start again.
Okay, so let's go. So I have let what we have to show. We have to find such a set S prime, and the idea is very simple. So how to find. Is a property 1, 2. The idea will be contained. Okay, so let me just define something and make a picture. So I have so I look at the point X in the universal cover, and I have. So maybe I should make a larger picture. So in order to find a generating set, one thing you can do is to look at a large ball, as I said in French. So you can look at a large ball, let's say of radius. So fix some R, some positive R, and you could look at a ball of radius R plus 2 diameter, 2 times the diameter. Okay? And you look at the orbit of X, the gamma orbit of X, with this large ball. Okay? And okay, so we know that. We know that this subset of element of gamma generates the group. We will see later the proof of that. But okay, so we know that, but we don't know how to estimate the cardinal of this set. And the idea is to choose a subset of this orbit. So we are going to choose some element, not all. So we are going to choose a subset of this orbit, and to be more precise, I will look at S prime to be a set maximal cardinal So I will denote this element by gamma prime I. Okay. There are elements of gamma, but they will belong to the group generated by S prime, which I would like to call gamma prime. So I define S prime to be a set of maximal cardinal, which I denote like this, and which is pictured here, such that two things happened. So the first is that the distance between x and gamma prime I of x is less than r plus 2d, so they are in the ball. And the second hypothesis says that they are not too close to each other. So the distance between gamma prime I x, gamma prime jx is larger than r. Okay? So like in the picture. Okay? And okay, so now I claim that so what we have to, I don't erase the statement I want. What I want to show now is that so two things: the fact that this subset has bounded cardinal in terms of the geometric invariant, which I have given. Are there some questions? So I have to show that this set of maximal cardinal is not too large. The cardinal is not too large, and also that the subgroup has finite index in them. Okay? So there are these two competitive things. And okay, so the first observation now. So let me just claim something. Start with. And so I start proving maybe proving two. Okay. I claim that proving that gamma prime has finite index is equivalent, or at least is implied by some property, which is that for any y, so this group has to be large in some sense. So for any element y in the space X, then the distance between X and the orbit between y and the orbit of X, gamma prime, has to be less than r plus d. Let's say strictly less than. It's not very important. Let's put it this way. Okay. Okay. So I claim that if every point of the universal cover is at bounded distance of the orbit by the subgroup gamma prime, then the subgroup is as finite index. So it sounds reasonable, and the proof of that is most obvious. Let me just do it. The proof of this claim. So how does it go? So look at how does it go? Right. So I take gamma. Okay. So I want to prove that gamma prime is finite index. So I take some gamma in gamma, and I look at the class of gamma modulo gamma prime, and I want to show that there are finitely many such classes. Okay. And to do that, I look at the orbit. I look at the orbit by this set of X, and I look at the distance between X and the orbit of this set. So let me just make a picture. So I got X somewhere, okay? And I look at the orbit of X by this set. So it's not a subgroup, but so I look at this red orbit, which is the orbit of X by the set gamma prime of X. Okay. And if I look at the distance, so I look at this orbit and I will show that each of these orbits will meet the ball centered at X and of radius r plus d. And if I can do that, I'm happy because there are finitely many elements in the ball, and so there will be finitely classes. All classes are disjoint. Okay. Therefore, and this is equal to d of gamma minus 1x gamma prime of x, and by assumption for any y, this is less than r plus d. Okay, so it proves the claim. Okay. So the claim says that if every y of x is at bounded distance of any orbit of the orbit of x by gamma prime, then I'm done, and I prove that if one has this, you can associate to each class an element of this particular ball of radius r plus d, and therefore, since all these classes are disjoint, you have finitely many of them. Is it clear? No question? Okay. So this is obvious. And therefore, okay. So therefore, I have to show this in order to get 2. Okay. So let's do it. And the proof of 2 is basically this picture. So let me start here. So I prove this. Let me call this property star. The property that every point in X is at bounded distance of the orbit by gamma prime of X. Okay? So proof of star. So we argue by contradiction. If not, then there exists a y in X such that the distance between y and the orbit of X is larger or equal than r plus d. Okay? And so moving a little bit, so if you take X here, of course, the distance is 0. Okay? And then in between, you can assume that there exists y in X such that the distance between y and gamma prime of X is exactly r plus d. Just by some infinite element. Okay, so let me just put this point on the picture. So there is a point y somewhere here. Okay, and I know that the distance between, okay, so this distance is the distance between y and the gamma prime orbit. I'm sorry, Gerard, I just moved.
No problem for me.
Okay, so so the distance between y and the gamma prime orbit is exactly r plus d. This means, or I will show it. This means that I can find some gamma prime 0 of X here, such that this distance is exactly r plus d, and all other distances between y and the red points are larger than r plus d. Okay. Exactly the here. But on the other hand, I know that there exists. I know that the quotient by the group gamma, the full group gamma, has a diameter less than d, and so I know that there exists a point alpha x here, where alpha, sorry, I don't dare to move now. I'm sorry. So, okay, so now I claim that there exists alpha, which is not in gamma prime, which is in gamma, but not in gamma prime, such that the distance between x and alpha x is less than d. Just by okay, so So here is my point alpha x, and so here I have a distance which is less than d. Okay. Sorry.
Why? With y, okay.
What do you say? Say it again?
Distance between y and x.
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you. One. There exists an alpha, so that one is a distance. Thank you. Okay, so now in order to get a contradiction, I will find a set. So all these guys, gamma prime I, this set is exactly what I have called S prime. Okay, and in order to get a contradiction, I will just find a strictly larger subset satisfying the same assumption as in the definition, which I have put here. Okay, so the contradiction will come from the fact that the contradiction come from the fact that the family gamma prime 0 alpha union S prime satisfies 1 and 2, the two property over there, and then it will contradict maximality. Okay. All right, so now I have just now to check that this family satisfies the two assumptions, and it's just a consequence of triangular inequality, so it's very easy. So let me just start with one property. So I have to show, so maybe I go there. So there are two things to be proved. The first is that the distance between x and gamma prime 0 minus 1 alpha x is less than r plus 2d. So we have to check those two things. So let me start by this one. So this is equal to d of gamma 0x, gamma prime 0x alpha x. And the fact that it is smaller than r plus 2d is just triangle inequality. So the distance between this point and this point is smaller than d plus r plus d. Okay. So just picture. This triangle inequality. So everything is in the picture, is on the picture. Okay. And the second property is that the distance between gamma prime 0 minus 1 gamma prime I of x, sorry, alpha x, with gamma prime I of x is larger than r for any gamma prime I. Okay. And again, it is a picture. So this is equivalent. So this is equal to the distance between alpha x and gamma prime 0 gamma prime I of x. Okay, so let me just go to the picture. So this point is in the orbit of gamma prime. Okay, so it's one point which is over there. So for example, it's here. So it is gamma prime 0 gamma prime I of x here. Okay, and if I look at this triangle here, we see that, okay, so we see two things. So first thing is that this distance between y and gamma prime 0, gamma prime I is larger than r plus d because of the definition of our assumption. And therefore, the distance between this point and this point is larger than r plus d minus d by triangle inequality. And so it's larger than r. Okay. So this is larger than distance between gamma prime 0, gamma I prime of x and y minus distance between y and alpha x. Okay, and it is what we want. Okay. And we are done. Note, we are done for this. We are done for the fact that we have shown the second statement here. Okay. Are there questions so far? So now we have to control this, but this will be a consequence of our Bishop-Gromov inequality. That's where the Bishop-Gromov inequality enters the picture, and maybe I can do it somewhere. Maybe. Maybe here or there. So I read you one picture here. So
Excuse me, Gilles, there is a question on the chat. So the question is, how did we choose R?
we have not, okay, very good question. So we are going to choose it now in order to choose it. So here we have not chosen, we have not chosen R yet. So what I've said is correct with any R, and now any positive R. And now I am going to choose R in such a way that one can fulfill this assumption. All right. Okay, so proof of one. So I start again by a picture. So one has this point X, and inside one had this red orbit, gamma prime X. And we know that all the points are at distance at least. So here it's a goal of radius R plus 2D. Okay, and we know that all the red points are at mutual distance at least R, and therefore, if I consider the family of balls of radius R divided by 2, then you come up with a family of disjoint balls. So maybe there are some close to the boundary. Okay. So if I consider the family of balls gamma prime I X with of radius R over 2, they are disjoint. Okay, and the union all of them are contained in the ball center that X and of radius 3R over 2 plus 2D. Because we move a little bit further. Okay? And therefore, when you measure this, you come up with the fact that the measure of this union is less than the measure of the ball. Okay. And again, so the balls are disjoint, so this is the sum of the measure of the ball, and each of these balls have the same volume, because gamma acts by isometry and mu is just a counting measure, and so everything is identical. And therefore, you come up with, so the sum, you come up with the cardinal of S prime times mu of Bx R over 2 less than mu of Bx R over 2 plus 2D. Okay? And therefore, you come up with something which is obviously related to our Gromov, Bishop-Gromov inequality, which is a quotient between the measure of these two balls, so of radius 3R over 2 plus 2D, divided by mu of Bx R over 2. Okay? And that's here that we choose R in order to be able to apply Bishop-Gromov. Okay, and in order to be so we are going to apply our first theorem, so not the one I have proven, but the one which could be deduced by an iteration argument. And maybe I remind you, maybe I can remind you this theorem, and we are done. In fact, now you understand that we are done because we're going to have here a formula if R is chosen sufficiently large. So in fact, it's but I just want to make it clear and neat. So now we choose. So I remind you the statement of the main theorem. So I have to find it again because I don't know it by heart. Okay. So the same assumption, xd delta hyperbolic, diameter, same assumption, okay? Then for R larger than 10D, so maybe you are going to ask me why before it was 10 and now it was 12, now it's 10. If you wish, you can just ask me why, but you are not obliged to do it. And okay, so for any x, for any such situation, for any x, one has that mu x gamma of b x r divided by mu x gamma of b x small r is less than some quantity. I don't want to write again, but okay, sorry, maybe I don't want to write it, but I do it. Not important. I mean, it's important that not that much. Okay, so what is important is that you can put really expression of the environment. So it's explicit. So and so now if I choose R over 2, if I choose R over 2 larger than 10D plus 2 delta, then conclude. Okay? That's where you choose R. Okay, and we are done. And maybe okay. So it's so there are still 5 minutes. So maybe I could stop because maybe I'll answer a question because I have next. It is the next chapter, so I don't want to start the next chapter.
Okay, if you have any questions, so the people in distance could ask a question through the chat, and the people here could ask questions directly.
In English?
In English, yes. It seems that two properties apparently contradictory, that gamma prime has a finite index, and the fact that the number of elements gamma of S prime is bounded. It seems that the first property I said, that is, it does not use many of the assumptions. Delta hyperbolic doesn't enter, and diameter bounded.
Diameter is used.
Entropy bounded doesn't enter.
No. It appears at the end of the story, just
Yes.
estimating the Bishop.
In order to
But not in
use
this
it.
construction. Yeah.
To use Bishop-Gromov.
Yeah. But in fact, I could have said it in another way, but I could have said, in fact, as soon as S prime is finitely generated, then the first Betty number is larger than or equal to. So, we could have said it this way, but it's nice to have a complete.
Any other question? whose answer you don't know in advance. And on the chat, I don't see anything. Okay, so maybe we'll have lunch.
Yeah.
And thank you for your lecture. And thank you, everybody.